Got the little bombardier in the shop. Thing's kind of been a work in progress since day one. Had a flathead Chrysler in it and had nothing but issues with it. Hard to get it running, carburetor wasn't very good. So I swapped this L28 Nissan. Would come in a 240Z Datsun motor with its transmission. It's just a little 4-speed with reverse, hydraulic clutch. But I bought this radiator online, and the radiator is just not enough to make it cool. And originally the radiator would be like right here. That is the original radiator, and that we're gonna put back in. But I gotta build a bracket that holds it because the original hood, which is here, would have ended about right here. But since the L28's longer, I had to push the grill back. Therefore, everything just doesn't fit like it's supposed to. So I'm gonna stretch the hood, put the firewall back in because I just have wood in here right now. This will probably get remounted, but ultimately getting the big radiator back on top where it belongs, and then putting a pull fan that pulls the heat down and out the back. Because right now I had a pull fan, but obviously pulling the heat into it, which is not right, but the fan I got was wrong at the time, and the radiator is just too small. So we are going to get that radiator put back in here where it belongs. We're gonna have to do some stretching of the hood and change the firewall, and of course the angle is gonna be different too because the grill is pushed back, which isn't that big of a deal. And the alternator situation is kind of a mess. It was rubbing on the belly pan, but I don't have much room because it runs into the distributor, and I can't mount it higher just because it gets in the way of the hood and the radiator, so that needs to be refigured. I could have put the alternator on this side, but at the time the coolant hose is here, so I didn't. So I might be able to remount the radiator on this side, and now the coolant hose will come up and straight up. Not sure yet. Need to build exhaust for it because the exhaust is just straight pipes, which I'm kind of proud of this exhaust actually because it comes out over here, and you're probably not gonna be able to see unless I turn a light on. I might be able to show you. Let's see here. I had to make it loop down and around and underneath the oil pan to come out onto that side, which was not easy, but it had to be done because there just wasn't the room to wrap it around this side, and I wanted to keep the heat away from the carburetor, just keep the heat away from it. So now it's over here and plumbed out, but we never got mufflers or anything put in it, so we're gonna do that. Also, I was just looking around the shop and I had these laying around. Most people know what them are. They are Scotch blocks for a wrecker. Little teeth in them, but they happen to be the same width as the tracks. So I'm gonna build little tie backs, maybe little D-rings, so I can drop the chain in on a hook. And then I got a 12K winch to put here, so then it could be used to winch stuff. And with the Scotch blocks, it would hold in place pretty well. I think it would be actually really good. So I'm gonna build a little plate, come out the back here, winch, just a couple D-rings, plumb it in. Electric winch, not hydraulic, but it'll be fine. I'll probably end up using like a D-ring here, and then I'll put just a normal slip hook, or not slip hook, but a latch hook. So then if you're in the mud, you can just drop the latch hook in and you know the length. So it will be for sure in the right position underneath the wheel, because when you winch, you want this wheel to be like halfway up the block, so it's putting the most pressure you can get on the cutting edge. It's kind of what I'm going to work on, see what we can get done. I got to run to the steel yard and get a few pieces of angle iron to mount the radiator, and some, I think this is 10 or 12 gauge, to build just a little covering, side cover for both sides. Also, when we were using it the other day, the window fell out, and the door hinge broke and cracked, which I guess that's the way it goes. Luckily the window didn't break, so I gotta fix that. So I think that will solve the problem. The only thing I gotta buy is a fan. Like I said, I'm gonna put a fan that pulls or pushes, so it mounts this way and pushes air out so it sucks hot air through out of the engine bay, out the back. That's how it was originally, except the engine had a fan on it that pushed, which this engine didn't have a fan, and we'll just put an electric fan on it because it's easier and the height is right. Since I mounted this motor lower, you couldn't use the standard engine fan anyways. Should be pretty good. So it's gonna be like an angle, sides, winch, Scotch blocks. Probably build something on the back of the side for the Scotch blocks to sit in, so you're not fumbling around with them all the time. And if that fixes the cooling situation, this thing will be pretty buttoned up at that point because the drivetrain's really good, drives good, tracks are good, tranny, clutch, put a new clutch in it when I put the motor in, so. The only thing I kind of screwed up on, if you notice the motor's mounted level and the carburetor's crooked, it's because the motor's supposed to be unlevel and the carburetor be straight, but it's got a 4-barrel on it. That's just what was on it when I bought it, or when I got it, so I'm just going to, I have one of the bowls basically turned off, basically the 4 barrels turned off, so it's only running on 2 of the barrels, which is way more than enough for it. So I just need to dial the float adjustment a little bit because sometimes it wants to flutter out a little bit. If it's cold, but once it's warm, it's pretty good. So see what we can't get done. I got to run to the parts store and we will go from there and tear it down. Okay, I got the radiator removed, radiator hoses, pulled the alternator, battery box. Started cutting apart the old radiator support. I want to reuse them in the hole so I don't have to reinvent the wheel to build it because it's right there and it already exists. But I cut the firewall off because I need to stretch it and I need to dictate where the radiator is going to sit. But it's easy to cut the firewall off and get the firewall bolted in and mounted. So then there won't be any issues with fitment if I take it back apart. I stopped at the steel yard today, grabbed a few drop pieces of metal they had. So I should be able to get this in here with some trimming and then run it down into there. And then the radiator will sit between these two above there. And I got the right size, so I can drop the angle down, hopefully, maybe, within the tube. So it's nice and snug and fits tight. And then that just slips over the top. Then I also have to build side panels, which I picked up some 10 gauge for that. But that's kind of where we're going with this. Should work pretty slick. I see this is a little bit bigger because that's 1.5 by 1.5, but I think I can pound it in there once I clean it up. So it's nice and smooth fit. So that's the plan. I would record while I'm working on it, but I get sidetracked. And that's probably not going to happen. And when I watch YouTube, could care less about watching people grind and weld. I just like to see it done. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get it done. All right, we got some more progress here. Now you can see visually the extension that had to be made to the hood to make it fit. I ended up putting new bolts in here and welding the backside because some of the 4 bolts that go on the radiator that hold it up in there. It's got this clamped in here and mocked up so it gets bolted on the back and welded to the firewall. So you can pull the back off and then pull the firewall and lift it out if you ever had to replace it, but it's not welded to the cab, just bolted to the cab. So you can pull the cab to service the clutches or the brakes, gas tank, everything like that. Overall, it's looking like it's gonna work pretty good. Also, screwed around a little bit with some exhaust stuff. I have these flexible joints. I found this stuff at Datsun 510, I think. So I'm gonna kind of somehow get this to go like that, to that, build a cover, then probably that muffler. Little stack on it so it's nice and quiet. And then have this flange here, I'll just have to cut it. Kind of being resourceful, easy enough. I don't have a pipe bender. I don't have a bunch of fancy tools, but I got a bunch of old stuff laying around. Make it work. Put all new spark plugs in it because I kind of sneaking suspicion they might be bad. I don't know where one went, but I took one of the plugs out and the porcelain was broke, so I don't know if that was part of the kind of not running the best, but there she is. I got this radiator fan right here, which is the one that was on it. And I'm gonna mount it this way this time. Back in here. Like that, kinda. So it pulls the air out through the back. I might have to get a bigger one, but that's what I got for now. And like I said, I'm not buying stuff unless I have to. But it seemed like it pulled pretty good air, so I think it'll work just fine. The radiator hose situation, not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. This is upper, this is lower. The lower will drop right here into there. And then I can adjust this yet. Once I put the radiator in to figure out where it needs to go, it'll slide. And then the upper is right below here. Kind of like right in there. And I do have the pipe somewhere right here. This was on the upper here, went like that. So if I can go like here, run it down somewhere in that neighborhood, and then a U-pipe from there to there, because I tried to find a thermostat housing with like a straight up or a clock different, and I can't find one anywhere. So a U-pipe will have to do, knock that down a little bit, and honestly, I think it's gonna fit fairly good. So between the good radiator, the fan working properly, and the exhaust pipe situation fixed. I accidentally cut the video, so the pipe will sit somewhere back here with mounting brackets. Should be quite a bit quieter. But yeah, it's coming along. It looks so much better with a hood too. It was kind of ugly before, so there's that. All right, I worked late last night and got the exhaust somewhat buttoned up. When the cover goes on, you're only going to see about this much of it. I wish I had a chrome stack muffler, just because this is chrome. It would kind of look nice, but let's see if we can't fire it up. This is the next day, so it is cold. Just whack the throttle twice and it should fire it up. Oh yeah. Nice and quiet. It was so loud before, you could almost not stand it. I still haven't got the radiator or the alternator hooked back up, but let's see here. The new spark plugs definitely made it run a lot better. I think them other ones were God knows how old. But, I mean, it is smooth. Very smooth. Ended up doing some flexible joints there. So when the motor torques a little bit, it has some movement. Solid mount there with just a band clamp, flange. Like I said, this 810 exhaust was like perfect. This was part of the header, and I cut it off the header flange, and it happened to be a decent spacing for what I already had. So kind of just rigged it up, and instead of reinventing the wheel and totally custom full exhaust, I just used what I had laying around. And I might have the muffler is probably the most expensive part, probably 55 bucks at Tractor Supply, but 20 bucks for the flipper cap, But most important part down here, free. I think it turned out pretty good once you put the side covers on it. It'd be nice. Maybe buy a chrome stack, but we will see. Hopefully today I can maybe get the radiator buttoned up. I'm not gonna hold my breath on that though, because we only have one part store in town, and I'm not gonna be able to find coolant hoses, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get a tow into a bigger town. I'll be able to find something. But what we can get done, Scotch blocks and the rear winch. I gotta go pick the rear winch up now, but we can get that done. Should be able to wire it, make it work. I have the original side panels, but they need to be stretched, which I don't think I'm gonna stretch them. I'm just gonna fill this in, and just make the panel go from here back. I'm gonna need some trimming, of course, though, because the carburetor hangs out. And I have to do trimming on this side because the exhaust hangs out. At one point, this thing was like original, flathead, exhaust came out right, wasn't a hole here. Completely, like, I went through it all and it was nice, but it just kind of wasn't that good. It was slow. The motor was flathead, didn't run great. Carburetor is hard to get parts for. So I'm like, well, you know what? I'd rather have a machine that's all cut up and works good than a machine that looks good and doesn't work at all. So got out the torch, got out the grinder and the welder and made it happen. I was the one who put all this engine swap in here. I've seen some people saying, well, it looks like the motor's swapped. Well, it is swapped. I put it in here. I built this to go around the drive shaft, put the clutch pedal, gas pedal. It's just pretty primitive. It ain't nothing crazy. We didn't go crazy and put it in here just because I don't see the point. And then the oil filter, I think I might remount it down by the transmission down here, just so it's like out of sight. And there's still plenty of room. So that will probably happen just to get it off the back of the cab, which I kind of should have never drilled that hole in there, but here's what it is. So yeah, should be good. Alternator's still on the fence on how that's gonna get mounted. Probably gonna be up higher, I'm thinking, but limited room, of course. So let's see what we can't get done on this thing today, hopefully out of the garage and with coolant in it. But like I said, I'm not gonna hold my breath. All right, update. We have the cooling system routed, ran, adapted, rigged, whatever you want to call it. It's in there. This one actually turned out nice. The other one is, I'm not going to show you because I don't want to get my feelings hurt by the comments, but it's in there and it's holding water, and that's all that really matters. The alternator is here. I got these little brackets I built. I just got to build a flat plate to bolt it to the chassis, and this will rotate out. So I got to build the rotate part. But that should give us enough clearance on the distributor. Vacuum lines. Belt will sneak right through there, hardly. But just need to whip out the bottom piece and then some sort of support that goes to the top bolt. And then that should be done. It runs. Exhaust is done, cooling system's ran, fan is mounted and wired, so soon we will be able to get it up to temp and see if we have leaks or if it gets hot. Probably won't be able to test if it gets hot until I take it outside and use it. But yeah, so hopefully this evening we can be doing some testing. All right, the cooling system's plumbed, the alternator is mounted, belts on it, exhaust is done. Gotta do some sheet metal work. Close this up, close this up. We're just gonna see if we can make some heat with it and get it to up to temp and see what it's gonna do. See if we have any leaks, but all around looks good. So just gotta do the sheet metal on it and then we can work on the winch. All right, it's been running out here for about 45 minutes. Seems like everything's good. Ended up having to put a radiator cap on it because the one that was with it was old and worn out and the seal is leaking. The belt's riding nice. It's gonna have to stretch a little bit before I can tighten it up again. A lot of moisture out of the stack. I don't know what that's about, but it is what it is. It's holding a pretty good temperature. So I think we solved our heating issues. It'll cool down more once I put the sides on it because it creates a suction from the top and then out the back. Right now it's not really sucking any air through, it's just pulling heat out of the engine bay. So it's still pretty cold coming out the back. But as soon as I block it off, it pulls a vacuum and then out the back. So believe it or not, with the side covers on, it'll cool better than without. Little sheet metal work here. It should be good. I like how quiet it is though. Makes it real nice. Back in the shop it goes to continue on with the winch and the spades. And it's got a little bit of an idle hang, but a little better return spring. We should have that figured out. Sounds great though, quiet, smooth. Pretty happy with it. Motor is really smooth. So yeah, kind of nothing crazy here on the alternator mount, but you know, it is what it is. It'll work. All right, got the BOMBI back in the garage. Gonna put some Scotch blocks underneath the back like they used to do on old wreckers. Tie them back to the chassis. Thank God the tub on this chassis is plenty heavy duty to take the abuse. Then they get the rear wheel right up on them to drive them into the ground. So when you're winching off the back, the tracks or tires would work as spades to dig in the ice or in the dirt. These spades I had laying around, same width as the tracks. So pretty easy. Just had to weld some D-rings on. I probably didn't use big enough ones, but you know, 47,000 pounds. Might not be big enough, but I guess if we rip them off, we rip them off. So there she is. Now mount the winch and we should be able to go test it. Pretty good fitment otherwise. Okay, we're back again. Got the winch mounted, wired up to the battery, almost ready for testing. Just gotta put gussets down on the bottom, but otherwise it is hooked up and it is working. The fair lead's bent because it's just a winch I had laying around, and I need to put synthetic on it. But I'm not a huge fan of electric winches. This is literally the only one I own, and I only own it because I got it for free. I'm just a big hydraulic winch fan. They just don't get hot. They just keep working. They're pretty much indestructible and super reliable. And I guess I've never had good luck with electric winches, although the only electric winches I had are on ATVs. And we all know ATV batteries suck, so that's probably why they aren't any good. So we'll see how this one does. I think it's gonna be pretty impressive. I think I'm gonna be surprised with what it'll winch with it dug in. I think any pickup or car in a stuck situation probably won't be much of a match, but this is more for side-by-sides and four-wheelers anyhow, just because our trail systems are posted so to like 64 inches and none of the bigger equipment will fit through the posts and you can't get around them, so you need something small to get down the trail systems. Like I said, because everything here in Minnesota that's ATV is 64 inches wide, and that's the restrictions. And this is 48 inches wide, so it'll pretty much fit anywhere and go anywhere that a four-wheeler can go. So that is the reasoning behind building such a small recovery unit, because of the terrain we're in and what we deal with on restricted ATV trails that are posted, so you can't fit between them. Sometimes the DNR gives me the codes to get into the gates. I've done that in the past with bigger equipment, but sometimes it's late at night, sometimes you can't get codes. So this is the option. Super excited to see how she winches because I think it's gonna be impressive for what it is. Might have to run dual batteries, but we'll run one for now and see. Coming together. All right, day 3. Got interrupted last night, otherwise would have had this done for recovery. All I got left is to put these little little braces in under the winch. I don't know if I'm gonna put them at an angle or straight. Probably at an angle, just because it looks, I don't know, looks a little better. I got some flat bar here. 2 of them. Down under here, cut them out with plasma cutter quick, weld them on. I do have the winch wired, so I just gotta put the battery box back on it. I'd like to put the engine covers on it too before I pull it out. So that will be what we're gonna do today. And then weld the door hinge, put the door back on, and the glass back in. So there's gonna be a couple things, but we will be testing it in this video today. So let's get at it. All right, here it is. Now we can go test it. I got the engine covers somewhat on. Kind of sick of working on it, to be honest, so it's gonna be what it's gonna be for a little bit, but at least it's together enough to do something. Got this plumbed in a little bit better, cap on it. I'll build engine covers there eventually, but like I said, I'm sick of working on it right now. Winch is mounted, gusseted. Got to build a holder for these guys, but it's good now. Good enough to test. After I put the engine covers on, it blows way harder out here. The fan definitely pulls a lot more air, so that is good. I think we're gonna try to drag the skid loader. Probably a good first test. I think it'll do it. The ground is frozen. It's probably 10 degrees out, so it's gonna have a little bit of a hard time digging in, but I think it'll do it. So let's rig it up and see what happens. All right. Got the Scotch blocks in place, got a small rig set up. Gonna pull her back on the Scotch blocks and let's see how good it bites. It's gonna take a little bit to get fit in. Chains will tighten up. Keep digging in. Maybe I'm a little too confident, but it's dug in, so that's good. I guess that probably is froze down. Maybe I was a little too confident on that one. But it does bite. It is a bit good. No movement on the skid though. Probably a little bit too confident on this, but I guess the main thing, it digs. That's the main thing. We don't want it to slide back, and it just rolls off the blocks. Maybe we should try something more its size. 12,000 pounds, 5-ish thousand pounds, maybe lighter. I think it's lighter, but she digs in good. Let's go find something a little bit smaller. Okay, let's try something more its size. Pull her back on the blocks. Let's see what this thing's got. I put it in 4-wheel drive, so it should slide everything. I think the other tire's sliding on the front. Yeah, it is. Not too bad. Probably weighs 6,000 pounds-ish. It's not even hardly wheeling up, which is good. The blocks are about perfect position. Oh, must have caught something. Being a little harder. I think we could have got the skid steer to move if it had a good dead man, like a tree or something. It would have pulled it probably. But it on its own, probably not. I'm just more concerned about how good it digs in. And obviously the blocks are digging in real nice. Like I said, I need to do synthetic rope and not pull like that, but it ain't gonna break, because I know it won't. It's not that heavy. Had to rewrap the winch cable in anyways. Yeah, it's doing it pretty good. Pretty happy with it. Like I said, most of the time this will be used for ATVs, side-by-sides on limited access trails where you can't get a bigger machine into, which there's plenty of them around. Pretty happy with it though. Definitely big upgrades from what it was. Turned into just screwing around with an actual recovery machine. Seems to work pretty good. Pulling her back pretty much like nothing. Winch actually works pretty good too. It doesn't seem that noisy. Let's see what we're at for temperature. Probably like 190. It's not horrible. Definitely blowing heat out. Didn't weld that up yet. Had to cut a little hole for the carburetor. Might have went a little bit too big, but oh well. At least you can peek in there to see if anything's going on. Alternator mount is looking like pretty good. Didn't squeak the belt or anything. Just taking load off it, or load on it. Overall, not half bad. Definitely needed it. So hopefully we can put it under recovery soon enough and see how she actually does. I have no doubt in my mind that we will definitely use it here in the coming months, I can imagine. So I hope you liked the video and a little bit of a rebuild on the build. I'm sure there's going to be more to it to get it more dialed. Subscribe and share. Just trying to make this YouTube channel grow a little bit. I think there's quite a few people that would probably be interested in some of this stuff. There's a lot of off-road stuff out west that gets posted to YouTube, but nothing in the Midwest really. So I guess I'm the Midwestern off-road guy for YouTube. So we're gonna leave you with that.